Hey guys, how's it going? In this video, I want to talk about being a multi-instrumentalist, and I will explain my journey of becoming a musician from the very beginning. Um, I started in music school when I was 6. In the beginning, me and a bunch of other 6-year-olds were in this music theory class for kids. We sang songs, we clapped rhythms, we learned how to write notes, how to read music, where the notes are on the piano, just foundations of music. And then once that was done, I started actually learning the violin. And in the beginning, as with any instruments, as you can imagine, the songs are very simple. I remember the very first song that I learned on the violin was called Raindrops, and it consisted of me plucking an open string throughout the whole piece while the piano player, who was the accompanist, was playing the actual song. And I was just like pluck, 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 playing the song. And I even remember to this day the illustration in the book for that little piece. There's 2 lines of music, just plucking my open A string. And the illustration was a man holding a dog on a leash, holding an umbrella in his other hand, and it was raining. Yeah, so that was my very first piece that I learned to play on the violin. Afterwards, in music school, all the musicians who played an instrument other than the piano had to pick up the piano for real this time. And when I was 10, I had to take piano, and from 10 to 13, I practiced the piano in addition to violin. And the pieces that I wound up playing towards the end were pretty challenging, not quite virtuosic, but nonetheless, with 2 hands, and I was quite proficient on the piano. And by the way, a side note, piano majors had to take choir instead of the piano. So after they're about 10 years old, they had to concentrate on choir. So that was it. And then when I was 13, when I finished 7th grade, I moved to the United States, and I started playing violin in the music school here. And in that music school, in the beginning everything was great, and then I became a lazy bum, and I was not practicing enough, and that drove my teacher nuts. And towards the end, my teacher actually kicked me out a year and a half after, and I got a different teacher. Again, everything was great with that second teacher. I was practicing diligently and in the same pattern, where I would wake up on the day of the lesson at 6 o'clock and start practicing. And obviously, the teacher knew that I didn't do my homework and was pretty pissed, rightfully so. But then towards the end of high school, something just changed, and I became more interested in music. And around that time, I also picked up the guitar. And my first guitar was this Costco beginner's bundle electric guitar. It's a Yamaha Stratocaster copy. It was $200 with an amp, with a case, with a gig bag, and all the cables and everything. So I started playing the guitar. Then I learned the bass, taught myself the bass. I wasn't amazing then on bass, but quite proficient again. And around that time, I wrote a piece called Tango, and that piece was performed at my music school and in my high school. And also during that time, at my high school, we had a very high standard of theater, just a professional kind of level of a professional level theater program. So we had musicals, and I played violin, and towards the end of high school, Fiddler on the Roof, Into the Woods. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum, and when I was Into the Woods, I just practiced my ass off. So I was Just I was really good, but that was towards the end of my high school years, and then what really did it for me was when I graduated. As a graduation present, my mom got me this a ticket to go to this youth international music festival in Italy for 2 weeks. When I went there, I was kind of like reluctant, like, yeah, this is kind of boring. But then I got into it. But then I saw these little kids who were so much better than me, and that really upset me. And when I came back, I was just ready to sell my violin and never do any music again. But then, about maybe 2 3 weeks after I came back from the festival, something clicked, and I just had this urge to pick up my violin and start practicing. And this was probably mid-June, July. So over the summer, I just started practicing like I'd never practiced before, and I learned this really difficult violin concerto. And then when I started in college, joined the orchestra. So I was just music. Even when I was a freshman in college, I practiced about 3 hours a day on violin, like I'd never done before. And all that year culminated with me competing at the concerto competition for undergraduates, and I was bummed out that I didn't win even the third place. At that point, I was pissed off. See, you notice this pattern, being pissed off. I was pissed off, and I said I'd never come back playing the violin again. I'll come back instead playing a different instrument. So over the summer, I went and bought myself a trumpet, the same trumpet that I have right now to this day. It was a professional level trumpet, and I taught myself over the summer. And for my sophomore year, I came back playing the trumpet. And then other instruments followed. Trombone, I picked up the trombone when I was around 20, 21. I was never really good at it, not even still not good at it, but good enough to record, good enough to come up with an arrangement, if anything. And so I'm leading into the next stage of my life. I'd never been in a band before, in a rock band or jazz band, nothing. The only thing that came close to that was that tango that I wrote. I played bass guitar on it, and through a flyer that I posted in the music building of my university, I joined my very first band, and through that band I made all these other friends and met other musicians. And long story short, basically, if it wasn't for that flyer, I would not be the musician that I am right now, doing all these projects, recording with all these bands, and doing all that studio work. So it's really funny how one thing can lead to so many other opportunities. So I joined my very first band when I was 20, and at that point I was playing the trumpet maybe 5-6 months, and I also, so in that band I was the multi-instrumentalist. I was playing guitar, trumpet, violin. I also recorded for the very first time in a studio sort of environment. Before that I was recording on my laptop when I was about 18, but now I was actually like working within the band context, so that was very interesting and a great experience. Tracking, for example, bass and drums in the studio could be very hard, and the only way you can learn to be good at it is by doing it a lot, so that you're not afraid that, oh crap, I'm gonna make a mistake and I'll have to do another take. So anyway, when I was that was when I was 20, and then other bands followed. I Jesus Christ, what's going on? I started a pep band at my college after the school cut the funding, and I was doing arrangements for that. I was leading the band for a year and a half there, and then I graduated and I started working, and my I was just doing more and more music all the time, more projects, more bands, recording for other people. So what else did I pick up? Well, um, I I always was fascinated by electric organ, and I got myself a Nord Electro, which at the time was really great for Hammond kind of sounds. I yeah, I picked up most recently. I picked up the flute 2 years ago, and yeah, I've played all of these instruments, especially the keyboards. I played in a band for several years. Bass I played in a band for something like 4 years. Guitar I played in various bands, and but I what I want to say is that the more instruments you learn, the more you realize that they're somehow not so different. There are common aspects about instruments. Now, piano is sort of a don't please don't hate me, but it's sort of a typewriter of musical instruments, because yes, you need incredible coordination to play with two hands. Obviously, Franz Liszt, all these crazy composers, enormous respect. But if somebody asks you to play a single note, you just take your finger and press it on the key, and the sound comes out. On the violin, to play a scale in tune without like sounding like a dying cat is a lot of effort. On the trumpet, to play for a very long time, your lips get tired, so you need to build up your muscles. That takes basically a lifetime. You're always working on your endurance. But all these instruments, they seem to have something in common. The Even the way harmonic series work on the trumpet, on the flute. On the flute you can play overtones, overblow and play all these different overtone series. The same overtones are on your stringed instruments, all of your natural harmonics, the fifth, the seventh, etc. So it all these instruments, they're so different, but yet they're so similar. And even though the piano is this mechanical kind of contraption, you can play harmonics on the piano as well. You can hold some notes and then like hit some other notes, and the notes that you're holding, the strings will resonate and resonate with the harmonic. So it's anyway. I don't know where I was going with this video, but it just felt like sharing a small part of my journey to becoming a musician. And here I am in my 30s, still doing it. And for those of you who are thinking of having kids, I highly recommend music classes, music school, music lessons. At various points in my life, I hated it, but now I can't imagine living without music. There you go. Thanks.